Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you've never been here before, my name is Lara. I'm a third year university student and I study geography and education. Within the education side of my degree, we do a block on psychology. And one of my lectures last year was how to be a successful student. And it's all based on psychological evidence. And at the start of this new academic year, I wanted to share that with you. How you can be the most successful student over the next 12 months. So stick around, subscribe down below if you haven't seen anything from me before. If you like my style of content, why not subscribe? Leave me a like down below. If you'd heard any of this or have any more advice of how to be a successful student, leave it in the comments below. Share this with someone who you think might find it useful. And without further ado, let's just get straight on into this video. The first rule of a successful student. Getting a copy of someone else's notes is pointless. Unless the notes are yours, they're useless. The purpose of a lecture or seminar or lesson or tutorial is twofold. The first purpose of them is to create richer and richer interconnected memories. If you're in a lesson, you're having discussions with people, you're learning things from your lecture, you're applying them, you're remembering them, and you're starting to create more signals within your brain. The second purpose of a lesson or seminar or tutorial or lecture is to review the activities that you'd heard in the lecture. And re-going over them, renewing them, it creates deeper memories. It strengthens the memory so that you're more likely to remember it. If you have someone else's notes, you have not written them, you're merely reading them, and you don't have that first memory in there yourself. Therefore, you need to have the first memory in there, so essentially show up to your lectures and write the notes yourself, because then you've remembered writing them, and as you go back it reignites that memory of you writing it in that lecture. It might sound stupid, you might have thought, oh, this is stupid advice, like of course I'm going to take someone else's notes if I'm not there, but go and listen to the lecture yourself, do the work for yourself, you'll create those memories yourself. You can't get the memories from other people, that's not how memory works. So the first and most important rule of being a successful student is that getting a copy of someone else's notes is completely pointless. So just don't do it. The second rule of a successful student is that studying equals writing. Yeah, that was my reaction too. Studying equals writing. You're not studying unless you're writing at the same time. Real study results in a written record. So you could have flashcards and you're just reading over them. Yes, you might be passively reading, passively taking things in. The act of writing something down is studying. If you're writing an essay, you're writing things down. If you're in a lecture, you need to be writing these notes because you can think, oh yeah, I'm going to remember this. No, you're not. Studying is equal to writing. If you're not writing, you're not studying. You'll have heard of all these techniques, mind mapping. Mind mapping is a great one because the act of consolidating all your notes and putting them onto paper is an act of study. But if you're then going back and rereading them, yes, you might be reigniting those memories, but you're not learning things because you're not writing things down. You're just renewing. That's the difference. There are 3 different types of memory. There's encoding, which is the stuff going in. There's the recall, which is the things coming out, which is happening in tests. So you're encoding when you're learning, when you're sitting in a lesson, when you're in a lecture, you're listening things, you're encoding. When you're in a test or a quiz, you're recalling, so you're bringing things from your brain out. And then there's depth of processing. The more you think about something during encoding, during learning, during a lecture, during a lesson, the more you think about it, the longer the memory lasts and the easier it is to recall it. So if you're in a lesson and you've spent an hour thinking about a certain topic, yeah, you've probably got a certain amount of memory on that topic. But if you go back and study it again in a week, and then again the week after, the amount of time that you spend encoding, learning things in your lectures, in your lessons, when you're writing, the easier it is to recall those memories later. So the more time you spend encoding, the easier it is to recall later, which is perfect for exam conditions, which is why small, little, often revision helps. If you're just cramming everything in at the last moment, yes, you might have spent 5 hours on a topic that you could have done over 5 weeks, but building up those memories over time helps to create those interconnections between your brain, therefore makes it easier to recall, which is essentially what you want for exams and things like that. The third rule of a successful student is that actions speak louder than words. It's easier to act your way into a feeling than feel your way into acting. What do I mean by this? Everything you do or don't do affects your motivation. It kind of works in a funny way. There are two kinds of motivation. There's intrinsic and there's extrinsic motivation. Your intrinsic motivation is your internal motivation. It's often associated with a feeling. I wake up one day and I feel motivated to do things. So it's easier to act your way into feeling motivated than it is to feel your way into acting motivated, if you get what I mean. The more time you put into your studies, the easier you will find it to get motivated. This is why routine is so important. If you're in a routine every day, you get up at 9 a.m. and you spend 2 hours studying, you spend 2 hours researching, writing essays, doing readings, you are already in that routine. It's so much easier to act your way into feeling motivated than to feel your way into acting motivated. So the more time you put into your studies, the more of a routine it makes, and therefore, even if you wake up one day and say, I don't really feel motivated, you're already in this routine, you're already in the structure of, I'm going to get up, I'm going to do 2 hours of work first thing in the morning. You're already in that routine, and because of that, you're helping your future self by getting into those routines. Regardless of if you're motivated or not, it's all about self-discipline. So actions speak louder than words. I can feel motivated, but unless I'm doing anything about it, it's pointless. And even if I'm not feeling motivated, what you want to do is act like you are, and then the feeling kind of follows that. Once you're in the zone, once you're acting motivated, your feelings kind of follow it regardless. So no matter what you're feeling, whether you're feeling motivated or not, get out, do the work. Acting speaks louder than words. The fourth rule of a productive student, of a successful student, is that talking in lectures or class is disrupting the learning of others. You'll definitely realise this if you're in schools, if you're a bit like I was in school and were very head down, head focused, and always got distracted by the people who were chatting behind you. You might think that paying attention or not paying attention in a lecture is no one else's business but your own. And that's true unless you're talking. Human beings, us, find it very difficult to habituate the sound of talking, to ignore it. This is known as the cocktail party effect. This is because of the change in pitch and tone and irregularity of our speech. We find it very hard to switch off, whereas if it's a constant noise, like a clock ticking, we often find it quite easy to just blank that out. But because talking is so irregular, we find that really hard, and our ears naturally listen to people talking, which is why talking in class is so disruptive to other people. Even if you think it's not, even if you're just whispering, people can still hear you. People can still hear that irregularity, and they try and tune into it. You might not be interested in a lecture at a certain point, but other people in the room might be. Especially if you're at uni, not so much if you're in school, but especially if you're at uni. People have spent a lot of money to be in that lecture. Respect that and don't interfere with it. If you're not enjoying a class, if you're not enjoying a lecture, you can zone out. You can sit there and not listen to the lecture. But please, please, please do not start talking, because it's so disruptive to other people, and it's not only annoying the lecturer, but it's probably annoying everyone else in the room. It's essentially a disrespectful thing, especially in uni, paying to be there. And if you work out how much each lecture costs, it's about £250 an hour per person, something around that mark. It's ludicrous how much lectures cost, and if you're sat in the background, can't be bothered to be there, just leave. Like, you don't have to disrupt other people for the sake of that. So, talking in lectures is disruptive and it affects the learning of others, and the quicker you realise that, the more respect you'll have for yourself and your classmate, and that will help you to become a more successful student simply because of the respect that you're learning. The fifth rule of a successful student is understanding that where you sit does affect your grades. Obviously in schools it's different because quite often you do have a seating plan, your teachers have put you in certain places. But look at this diagram. The people in the blue section of this diagram are the highest achievers in the class. The green is the medium achievers, and the red is the ones that have just zoned off and switched off and are not listening. To be in direct correlation, virtually in front of your lecture, one, firstly holds you accountable to listening to them, or at least acting like you're listening to them. You're sat virtually in front of them, they can see if you're on your phone, you can see if they're paying attention. You're not just sat back, relaxing, not doing anything. The accountability of being close to the front in a lecture is useful. It engages you so much better than if you're sat at the back, if you can barely hear the lecturer. Where you sit affects your grades. So if you're going into a lecture, you do get to choose where to sit when you're in university. You're an adult, you can do what you want. Try and make an active effort to sit as close to the front as you can. It might have a bit of a stigma in your uni, it doesn't really at Hope, which I'm so glad about, but sitting close to the front, oh, you're a nerd. No, you're not. You want to learn, you're there, you're paying to learn, and you want to do well. So statistically, the closer you sit to the front, if you're in that blue section, you have a higher chance of getting those higher grades because you're constantly almost having that accountability. Whereas if you're sitting up in the red zone, you're probably the ones chatting, you're probably the ones that get distracted, you're probably the ones that aren't really listening. That is a very, very broad stereotype, but it's what was said in my lecture, and to an extent it's true. You can get a vibe of the commitment that each student puts in, essentially just where they sit in a lecture theatre. So this is just a very basic overview, but I hope it makes you think. Number 6. Your needs does not equal other people's priority. To help yourself, you might need to help other people. You may think that someone else's needs are small. You might think that your needs are really small but really vital. But so does everyone else. We're the centre of our own universes. It's the world we live in, it's very individualistic. You are the centre of your own universe and you're very much focused on your own problems, your own struggles. So when it comes to dissertations or deadlines, or if you need support, the early bird catches the worm. To avoid disappointment, you need to plan ahead. The early bird catches the worm. Get in there early, ask for help early. You will then be a priority because you're first there. Whereas if you email your lecturer the day before and you've got an assignment due and being like, I really need help, there'll be an abundance of other people probably doing the same thing. And so you're 1 in 20 at that point. Whereas if you'd have sent that email 2 weeks earlier, you might be the first and foremost person there. So as much as it's the most important thing for you on that day, the day before your essay is due in, to get that help, your need does not equal your lecturer's priority. Just because you think it, there's probably 20 other people thinking exactly the same thing. Your need does not equal someone else's priority. Plan ahead. Make sure you're getting your work done early. If you need help, ask for it early. Don't leave it till the last minute. That will, 1, help you become less stressed as a student because you're not always leaving things to the last minute. You have months to do things usually. And then secondly, you're also more successful because you're better at time management and you can manage your stress levels and you understand the assignment way further in advance than other people. That's another rule for being a successful student. And then finally, there's no such thing as a harsh marker. This is one of the great myths among many students. Oh, he was just really harsh. She was such a harsh tutor. She was really harsh at marking my work. University regulations, especially in university, deny the existence of harsh or unfair marking. You can't get a piece of work remarked. The final mark is your final mark, regardless of what you think you should have got. And any appeals based on academic judgment will simply be rejected. Before you can learn from your mistake, you need to make them. You will make mistakes in university. You will get some essays back that you just go, what happened here? Like, this isn't my work. But that's okay. You will learn from your mistakes. It's so much better to make your mistakes in first year than in your final year in your dissertation. So take every mark a pinch of salt. You can't get it remarked. It probably doesn't matter that much anyway. Yeah, you might be on the border between a first and a second, but at the end of the day, unless you need it for a job, I'm not sure that one piece of work is going to tip you over the edge. And if it is, that's harder. I am going to agree with that. But there's no such thing as a harsh marker. So there's a theory called the self-serving bias, where we internalise our success and externalise our failure. Sometimes you do just need to accept that it might not have been your best piece of work. It's no one else's fault but your own. And that sounds really, really harsh to say. You often forget to congratulate yourself when it's a success, but when it's a failure, you choose to blame it on others. I know I do the same thing. Take ownership for your failure. It's okay to mess up. It's okay to make mistakes. You learn from mistakes once you've made them. You can't learn from mistakes if you've not made them. Our 7 rules of successful students. Getting a copy of someone else's notes is pointless. Studying equals writing. You need to be writing to show that you're studying. Actions speak louder than words. Talking in lectures is disruptive to others and it just takes a bit of respect for your fellow students. Where you sit affects your grades. Your need does not equal other people's priority, and there is no such thing as a harsh marker. So I hope you can take something away from this video. I hope you learned something. This is all backed with psychological evidence. I've left the list of references down in the description bar below if you want to go and do a bit more reading. If you want to ask me any other questions about my degree as well, send them my way there. It's a useful degree actually. I find it really interesting, especially the education side, because it's always so new. So subscribe down below if you like this kind of content. Drop me a message, drop me a comment even. Hit that thumbs up button because it lets me know that you like this style of video, and I will see you soon. Bye guys.